Welcome back to the Army Flashcards Troop Planning Procedures series. This particular video we're going to be discussing enemy analysis. So for enemy analysis, there's 5 things in particular that we analyze: composition, disposition, strength, capabilities, and then the most likely and most dangerous courses of action. So when we analyze the enemy's composition, what we are doing is we're taking what we get from S2 and higher, and we're also applying what we understand about the enemy's doctrinal composition, all right, or their task organization. So basically, when we look at their composition, we're going to create a line wire diagram for enemy, all right? We're going to make a task org for them. So they're the parent unit up top, and then little line wire to each of their sub elements. And you always want to do this for the level of enemy that you are personally fighting as a platoon, company, etc. So for this composition piece and with this task org, and really to include the capabilities and the strength for the enemy, we call this the doc temp, the doctrinal template, and it shows us generally how the enemy is going to fight, right? So their size, their task and purpose per element, their sub elements, etc. So building this doc temp or the enemy task org may seem easy and intuitive, but people tend to mess this up quite a bit, all right? So again, we want the parent unit, who's like your equivalent. So if you're a platoon, you're fighting a squad or whatever, that squad you need on the top, all right? Then you got your sub elements. And this is where we run into problems sometimes. So like your battalion or your hire is not always going to tell you exactly how that element's going to task organize their force, but you've got to take an educated guess. Like you can't plan effectively if you're just planning against that one squad, right? Like you got to break them into teams, because that squad's going to fight in different ways, or that platoon is going to fight in different ways with their squads. Now we'll come back to this more here in a second. So past the breaking it down into smaller groups, smaller sub elements, all right, you want to give a task and a purpose to each of them. That way you have a general idea going into your planning what each one's going to be trying to accomplish. Okay, and then on top of all that, usually in the top right of the doc temp, so above and to the right of your line wire diagram, put the enemy's mission statement so that you have an idea of what they're trying to achieve. And then put the strength over on the top left, all right? So the strength is just a percentage, 100%, 90%, whatever, okay? But the thing to keep in mind about this, all right, I can't emphasize this enough, people always mess up this doc temp or this line wire diagram because you don't put enough thought into what the lower elements are going to do, right? It's too easy to take what S2 tells you, or take your baseline understanding of the enemy and then just regurgitate it. But put some critical thought. If you were this enemy, you're going to fight, how would you use your elements to accomplish different tasks and purposes, etc., right? So that covers the doc temp, which should depict your composition, strength, and then capabilities. So we haven't talked much about capabilities. Let's move into that real quick. When we analyze the capabilities, this is also part of the doc temp, but usually that goes into a table, all right, a separate table. And some people might call this a red checkbook, or your warfighting functions table. So what I recommend is to analyze capabilities like this. So for each of the enemy's direct fire weapon systems and indirect fire weapon systems, you build a table that has their name in one column, their ranges, their US equivalents, their capabilities, etc., right? This helps you account for each of them and then compare them to your own assets and all that. So that's pretty easy, kind of just analyzing your direct fire and indirect fire weapon systems. But then you should go into war, even at the platoon level, briefly go into warfighting functions. So for the intelligence warfighting function, the enemy has UAV assets, they have human, SIGINT, whatever. At platoon level, a lot of times, the only intel they're going to have is what S2 provides them, or maybe they have OPs or some kind of recon or counter-recon force out there providing them their intelligence. For protection, maybe they have some engineer assets that are available for them to build fighting positions, battle positions. So just go into some detail on that. For me, especially at the platoon level, that is not so much as important as like your line wire diagram and fleshing out what the enemy is going to look like. So this leaves us disposition and most likely course of action, and most dangerous course of action. And we show this on a sit temp, your situational template. All right, so for the sit temp, you want this to be on a graphic, right? So you want to put this on a map, an overlay, a hand-drawn depiction of the terrain, satellite imagery. And on the sit temp, you want to take down all the sub elements from your doc temp, all right, from your line wire diagram. You need to put each of them where you think they're going to be on the terrain, out in your AO, on your objective area. And that will show the disposition, right? But you also want to put on there their tactical tasks that they're trying to achieve. If they're doing an offense, or they're conducting some kind of movement, you're going to want axis of advance on there for them, where their ORP might be. You really want to show how this element's going to be fighting on this sit temp, because later on when you make your own plan, you'll be able to plan better and create a better version of your plan if you've really thought out the enemy. Okay. So the sit temp naturally will show you disposition, but in trying to depict the most likely course of action, that's where we get into all those details I was just explaining, with what their movements are, their control measures even. The thing I see people mess up most on their sit temp is that they'll take just that higher level units like the squad, and they'll just put this one squad symbol, and they'll put it in the middle of a village or something where the enemy is, and then that's what they have to plan against. Okay, that's not the way it's going to go. If an enemy, let's say an enemy is retaining a village, they got a mission command node there or something, all right, and it's a squad. So one team is probably going to be around the perimeter securing the whole compound, okay? So just think about it. They'll probably have 1 or 2 guys walking around, maybe 1 or 2 guys at a TCP. All right, then you're probably going to have another team actually retaining it, okay? So maybe they're in the buildings, or they're on a rest cycle, they're helping out with the radios, something like that. So I know that's pretty quick, down and dirty with the enemy analysis, and really enemy analysis is pretty straightforward. It's just, again, I cannot emphasize enough, you got to put some good thought into what your enemy's going to do. And I'll help you out a little bit here, all right? So we'll go through some common types of operations that we run, so friendlies run, and generally what an enemy that you're facing will do, okay? So let's say you're a platoon, you're conducting a raid on an objective, all right? So a raid has a limited objective, you have a planned withdrawal. In general, if we're conducting a raid, you can expect the enemy to have not be in a defense, and to not be expecting you, right? So things that an enemy might be doing is just regular patrolling around their perimeter. So 2 or 3 people kind of walking around, checking things, and keeping the rest of the enemy force safe. If it's in a village or some kind of compound, or this area is being used by the enemy, there's probably gonna be some kind of TCP, so someone kind of controlling traffic in and out. And then you're gonna have a part of that element conducting some kind of normal, sustainment operation. So being on the rest cycle, either sleeping, eating chow, doing maintenance, things that are not combat related. Okay, so that accounts for a pretty significant portion. Then obviously you have your leaders and stuff, and they more or less are just doing sustainment operations too. So either they're on the radio, or they're checking on their soldiers. Think of it as more of a laid back op tempo form, right? That's you cannot conduct a raid on an enemy that is expecting you, or that is hardened, or they're dug in deeply and stuff. It's not what we use. We use a platoon attack for an enemy like that, okay? So again, it's a lot of people on raids, they trip up and they're just oh, they're all going to be sitting here in this village. I mean, yes, but you have to break out the elements and anticipate what the different parts are going to do. Even if it's as simple as they're going to be walking around the perimeter, or they're going to be in this building overwatching this dead space, or this field or something, all right? Okay, so for ambush, again, this one's very commonly people, you'll put the whole squad, or the 2 squads, or even the platoon. Sometimes we can really bend the rules and do a platoon on platoon ambush, even though you don't want to. But that whole element is not going to come into the kill zone all at the same time. And for an ambush, we want to anticipate not just what they're going to look like, with their disposition and the most likely course of action when they come into the kill zone, but how they're going to react to us. Okay, so a good friendly or enemy, if they're ambushed, we have a react to contact drill, we have react to ambush drills, okay, and there's different elements that are going to do different things, okay. So let's go with the 2 squads again, all right. So 4 teams total for an enemy, and they come into your ambush kill zone. How would you think the way that these guys are going to fight? So I'll tell you that most likely the enemy's probably going to have some kind of support element and an assault element, especially for a near ambush. So some part of that element, and this is where you got to figure out, like maybe one team, maybe two teams, they're going to return fires immediately and try to suppress the enemy that's attacking them, okay? Then there's going to be another element, the assault element. So again, maybe a team, maybe two teams. It's going to be their job to try to either destroy with attack by fire, which in a near ambush is going to be difficult, or they're going to have to try to maneuver with, while the one element is supporting and suppressing and providing fires, they're going to try to maneuver and destroy the enemy that's attacking them, okay? And you want to, you know, put some good thought into which elements that's going to be. So let's say it's a mounted element that comes in, right? More than likely, the 3-4 vehicles with cruisers on top, that's going to be the support element. They're going to hold tight. They're going to suppress the enemy. Then the dismounts are going to be the ones that come around. And again, it's important to flesh this out, because if you can anticipate that, hey, the vehicles are going to suppress, then we're going to have an assault element. You can, based on the terrain and some other things we talked about in the other videos, you can anticipate maybe where they're going to come assault through, and then you can put more friendly units there. You can put a crew serve weapon there or something to anticipate that and defeat their advantages. All right, and then the last kind of basic platoon operation we'll talk about is a platoon attack and a defense. All right, so they go kind of hand in hand, and really you guys are playing opposite sides of the coin for this. So if your enemy is conducting a defense, the things you can anticipate them doing are, one, having a security element that is in some kind of disruption zone out further past their defense, right? And the security element is trying to make and maintain contact with whatever enemy is trying to attack them. They have to. It is mission critical that they find whatever enemy is trying to come attack them, and then report back, give early warning to the people in the defense, and also try to shape the battlefield, disrupt, and like force them into an ideal engagement area. All right, so there's going to be a security element that's going to do that. They're going to be out there looking for you. They're going to be aware of you. All right, then you're going to have in the main defense area, you're usually going to have some kind of fixing force, and then like your main body. So fixing force, oftentimes like your cruisers, we're going to obviously try to get as many kills as possible, but ultimately we're trying to fix the enemy in our engagement area so that we can ultimately destroy them. You also may have some flank security, and you also have to anticipate some enemy reserves. At the platoon level, that's probably not going to happen so much, but some other things you got to consider for an enemy in the defense is they're likely going to be in battle positions, so they'll probably be dug in at least 18 inches, if not more. They may have overhead cover. They may have sandbags or at least rocks and stuff that help provide them additional cover and concealment. And I mean, you could go on all day. They might have primary battle positions. They'll likely at least have supplementary battle positions so that they can, if you come from a way they don't expect, then they can move. And so on and so on. All right, like we're really kind of going into a tangent in the defense here, but on the flip side, if you are conducting the defense and you are being attacked, say you're a platoon, you're being attacked by an enemy company, you've really got to break out the different elements that are going to be at play here. So they're going to have a security element that's out forward screening, conducting a recon on you. So you got to anticipate that force. You're going to have some kind of breach force that's going to try to get through your obstacles and your engagement area. You're going to have a main body, a decisive op. Like, there's a lot to consider, okay? We could go on. We'll do another video later on about the defense platoon attack, but there's a lot to consider there. So bottom line with enemy analysis, do not pigeonhole yourself into underestimating the enemy, all right? Really put some thought into how that enemy's going to task organize themselves, how they're going to fight, and ultimately achieve their mission. Okay, so this pretty much concludes the enemy analysis portion. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out our other videos, and we'll see you later.